Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Amber and I flip furniture. In this video, I am going to be doing this ice box. It's an antique one I picked up at a thrift store. It was originally, I believe, like $45 and I got it on sale for $15. I'm actually going to be doing this for my dad. So if you like to see makeovers like this, be sure to stick around to the end and let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, this one is in pretty rough shape. There is lots of cracking and splitting, and there's chunks of wood missing. So I will have plenty of repairs to be made before we can actually get into fully making this over. The first thing I do in any of my makeovers is I take everything apart. If it unscrews or if I can gently tap it apart, if it's nailed together, it's coming apart separately. It's so much easier to work on it when it's in pieces and you get cleaner lines on your finish. The back of this piece was like a tongue and groove, like cedar kind of board plank. And before I fully hammered them all out, I decided it'd probably be a good idea to number them so I knew which order they went back into so they fit together properly. So I just numbered them with some painter's tape, and as I went through and sanded each one of them later in the video, I just removed the tape and then stuck it back on when I was done sanding. Okay, so speaking of sanding, I sanded every piece of this antique ice chest. The top, inside, bottom, the backboard planks, the door inside out, everything. And I started with my orbital sander here. I'm using my rigid one. You'll see later in the video I will switch to a DeWalt one. My poor rigid orbital finally died, RIP. He had a good run. I used the shit out of it. And then to get into these corners, I used the sander attachment on my multi-tool to do the inside. This ice chest is made out of cedar, and cedar is a very soft wood, and there is lots of cracking and splits. Somewhere there was planks glued together, some just random cracks throughout big pieces of wood. So I filled up a glue syringe with some Gorilla Glue and put glue in all of those cracks and clamped everything together and let it dry. For the back pieces, I sanded the sides front and back with my orbital, and then I switched over and I hand sanded all the little tongue and groove joints on all the pieces. Since this was actually a refrigerator back in the day, the inside panels of the door are metal. So to help clean up some of the old paint and stain that got onto them, I just took some steel wool and some acetone and scrubbed that clean. Once all the glue was dry on the big cracks and splits on the wood, I mixed up some Bondo to fill in any remaining gaps and any areas of wood that was missing on the piece. And here I just wanted to show you guys how much Bondo I used. There was so many repairs that needed to be filled on this, but once it was all dry, I sanded it all smooth, and that was the last step, and then I could finally move on to getting ready to prep it for paint. Since this piece is cedar, I want to keep the inside of it and the backing the raw cedar wood, and then I'm going to be painting the outside. So I went ahead and taped off all the areas that I wanted to keep paint free. I'm going to be using Dixie Belle Boss in gray to prime, and using my HomeRite Super Finish Max, I sprayed 2 coats of the Dixie Belle Boss and let it fully sit for 24 hours before I moved on to painting. After priming, I noticed that there was some gaps in the seams on the front door panel, so I just took some paintable caulk and used that to fill in those areas. You only have to let this stuff dry for about 20 to 30 minutes before you can move on and paint over the top of it. So I just did that to both sides of all of the seams on that front door panel to help prevent any paint cracking in the future. I'm going to be using Eventide by Melange, and this is in the all-in-one formula. Once again, I am spraying this with my home right gun, and I did a total of 2 coats, and I had full coverage after that.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights. And I really wanna know if I will ever figure out where the road goes. Even if I'm falling down,
So as I mentioned, this is for my dad, and he's actually going to be using this to store like glassware and drinkware in. And since it's such a big open space, I wanted to add a shelf. So I picked up the cedar planking from Home Depot. I thought it would be really good to use to make the shelf because it kind of mimicked the backing, as it's also a tongue and groove style. So I measured the pieces and cut them down to size with my miter saw.
Jumping from cliffs so high, trusting our wings to fly. Sometimes we're crashing down, but we get up and start from the ground.
I then took a scrap piece of wood and I cut it to the height that I want the shelves to sit at, so that I could use it as a spacer, so that on both sides, when I screw in this other piece of wood that I'm going to be nailing the shelves into, it will sit at the same height. And I just used a tiny little level I found in my stash to make sure that piece of wood was level, and then I just went ahead and screwed it in, and I did this to the other side as well.
You can say I lost my mind, I will keep on holding my head high, even if the sky is falling down, even if the sky is falling down, yeah. The sky is falling down.
To seal the raw cedar wood, I am using hemp oil, and I'm using Melange's hemp oil. And you just pour it in a little glass jar, and you want to put it on pretty thick and let the wood absorb it. You want to let it sit I let it sit overnight, and if it absorbed everything, I did a second coat. Here is one coat on the back. You can see the color difference, and then the one side that's not done yet. So I did clean the hardware using my normal method of vinegar and Barkeeper's Friend, but it just didn't really clean it up very well. So I decided I was gonna spray paint it. So I am using Fusion, and I am doing like an antique oil bronze color on this. I think it'll look really good with the dark green. I sprayed 2 coats and just let it dry really well before I put it on. And you wanna remember to spray your screws as well if they're visible. Now that everything is complete, let's take a look back and remember what we started with this antique icebox.
It's just us two, me and you. I can't believe you love me.
And here is the final reveal. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comments below.
Still can't believe you love me. I hope it never ends. Let's be more than friends. Yeah. You know I'm here to stay every single day. Yeah.
Thanks so much for watching. If you're not already subscribed, definitely be sure to do so you can get notified when I do future makeovers. And I will see you guys next time.